So Parkwood is Beyonce's essentially holding company. I'm hesitant to call it a management company because essentially we manage the entire business of the Beyonce brand and work for her. She is the chairman of her company. She runs everything that we do. We all report to her, of course, as a GM that runs the day-to-day, but we have a digital team, which I run and manage. We have a marketing team. We have a full in-house creative team that manages all of our print and creative materials, and we also have a full video production team. So any content that you've seen that includes Beyonce over the last several years is all created in-house by the Parkwood team.
Right, and this is quite rare still in the music industry to have an artist managing their business and managing all the content like that.
It is. It's becoming more and more popular these days as artists become able to release, produce, and manage content on their own. They've become a little bit less reliant on record labels as they've been in the past. And you'll see more artists starting to do this. But, Beyonce is a fringe case. She has had quite a bit of success. So the ability to run a full company with a large team as we do is not the usual.
So I'd love to talk about the album, because I remember the moment when Apple made the announcement there's a new Beyonce album, Beyonce tweeted it, and it was a huge surprise and a really massive moment for the music industry. And it had all been secret, which in an industry is half about things leaking out and half about very carefully managed campaigns for months before release.
Right.
So how was the process of keeping it secret and getting it all to go live at the same moment? How did that work out?
It was quite a process. Most of us didn't sleep for many weeks, if not months. But ultimately, the idea in and of itself was all Beyonce's. And the fact is that, to your point, music in this day and age leaks all the time. What generally happens is once an artist or the record label sends the music to the facility to have it printed and produced into physical product, it inevitably becomes available to the world by someone who sells that content on the black market. So she really wanted to make sure that we had the ability to prevent leaks from happening, and at the same time, she wanted the ability to present a full piece, a body of work, without having it prejudged or criticized by the media before it can get in the hands of the consumer. And the idea was giving this full package to the consumer allowed them to hear all of the content in the way she wanted it to be heard, in the way she wanted it to be experienced, and all of the music had a corresponding video that would allow the fan to sort of see what she saw when she created and produced the music. So the entire effort was built around accomplishing those goals, and the process of doing it took a lot of people. There was quite a few people involved, but what ultimately happened is that there was a very small group who actually knew all of the moving parts that were happening at the same time.
Was it like a need-to-know basis of you need to know this bit you're doing but nothing else?
Exactly. So, there were some teams that were working on producing video content that had no idea that there was another team simultaneously producing another video. And even though they know they're working on videos, nobody knew that when it was going to actually be released. So there was a small group of people that pulled all of those things together and ultimately figured out how to release it. It was no easy feat. We essentially flipped the iTunes switch globally at midnight on almost a year ago, December 13th. And at the same time, we announced it on Facebook, on Instagram. We released clips of each video on YouTube, and we launched a new website. All at the same time.
That's kind of a quiet night at the office then. Okay. I'd imagine Apple are quite a good partner to have if you're keeping something secret, because they have years of history of keeping phones and tablets secret.
Exactly.
And they also have that culture. Was that quite important that you were working with people you trusted there?
Yeah, I think it was essential to the process, knowing that we were working with a team that also understood the value of, maintaining a very small group of people who kept the secret and understood how valuable and important it was to record sales, ultimately, to keep the secret.
I wanted to talk to you about social media and social networking, because this is a soft question, but my perception is that Beyonce is managed very well, in that you're on a bunch of social networks, there's a lot of fans, but you use them in different ways. But how do you decide what's meaningful, and how do you decide how to use those different platforms?
Yeah. We take a very strategic approach to social platforms. We primarily only use Facebook and Instagram at this point. Instagram is something that Beyonce most of the time uses directly herself. She'll post pictures. It's her way of sort of communicating to fans, giving them a little bit of a glimpse inside of what her personal life is like, what she's doing, what she's wearing, what her Halloween costume was, which was just posted the other day. And I think
What was it?
She dressed up as Janet Jackson, and her daughter was Michael Jackson.
Oh, that's quite scary.
It was a big win. It was very cute. And Instagram is essentially used as sort of like a personal communication tool, whereas Facebook is something that allows us to communicate some more substance about things that we have going on, or interesting opportunities, or it's something that we use a little bit more for promotional purposes. We're very careful not to be too salesy in anything that we do. That's not the kind of relationship that Beyonce has with her fans. She wants it to be organic, and she wants it to really come from her, and it does.
And so have you narrowed that down? Because am I right in thinking her baby photo was on Tumblr? She had a Tumblr at one point? And Twitter you didn't mention. So are you picking and choosing quite carefully?
We don't use Twitter at all. It's a personal choice, and I think as an artist, Beyonce really prefers to communicate via images. It's very hard to say what you want to say in 140 characters, and that's just a personal preference for her. And I think also because the Twitter channels are so crowded, and as all the channels are, but it's just a different kind of experience that a fan has between a fan and artist on Twitter, and it's not something that she really finds valuable.
I guess it's your job looking at a lot of these new things that come along, like a Snapchat, like a WhatsApp line. How are you? Is that a big part of figuring out where she might go next and what's relevant?
Absolutely. We spend a lot of time making sure that we're familiar with all of those platforms. And I really dig deep to ensure that if there's an opportunity to use some of those platforms, that we know what that opportunity is. But, I'm also very conscious of the fact that if we do decide to use WhatsApp, just as an example, for a specific opportunity, I would never open an account and expect that we can't continue to fill that channel forever. The account doesn't go away. It will continue to grow, and you will need to continue to fill it, and that's a huge responsibility. So, Beyonce's a little bit of a fringe case. It's not exactly the same with all artists or celebrities or brands, but, I find it really frustrating and annoying to see when someone launches something new, whether it's a new Facebook account or a new Snapchat account, and they do it for a period of time to sell an album or whatever it is that they want to hawk that particular day, and then they go away for 6 months. It's frustrating as a fan. So I'm always looking at these channels, but I want to make sure that if we use them well, we use them strategically, and we continue to fill the channel for a long time.
Okay. I mean, we were talking a lot about data earlier on when we were preparing for this, and talking about how, well, whether you're Beyonce, whether you're a brand, whether you're another kind of company, there's masses of data you can pull in. You can get down to everything. How are you dealing with that with Beyonce?
Yeah, we pay very, very close attention to data. I'm a little bit of I'm more interested in data than I would say probably most people are in the music business. After spending a couple of years at Zynga, in the Valley and surrounded by tech teams all day, every day, I'm a little bit more keen on the importance of data and how to use it. So what I often do is, I make sure that I deep dive into every piece of content, who looked at it, who shared it, who passed it by, what they shared it, what they said about it, if I have access to that. And I really try to use that information in a meaningful way. And it may not be tomorrow, the next day, it could be 6 months from now. And collecting all that data and really crunching it into, information that can be utilized in a smart way. And a lot of people don't do that. Particularly in the music business, data gets overlooked. So oftentimes, many bands will have access to something that their label might give them that'll pull, sort of top-line information from YouTube and VEVO and Facebook and whatever else, but they don't actually tell you what the data means and why it's important. So we really pay close attention to it. And it's one of the reasons why our website is so valuable, because although we have the social platforms, we still have Beyonce.com, which is a place where I can really dig deeper into that data and information and figure out who the fans are, what they're sharing, and how to communicate with them really effectively. So data is key.
And the time at Zynga was interesting because they got some criticism, people saying at some point the data started governing the creative decisions.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if you go into a room with Beyonce and say, look, you should make 10 more Drunken Loves, 10 beats per minute faster, and mention this word in the chorus because the data shows us that would be popular.
Never.
How do you mix data and the creative person at the heart of the company?
To your point, what I was exposed to at Zynga, having previously been in the music business, was, again, the importance of data. And they would take one piece of information and pull so much detail out of that one bit, and they were able to iterate on that to create, really valuable content that would ultimately make a great game. What oftentimes seemed to happen is that it seemed like some creative decisions were based on that data. I wasn't involved too deeply into that process, but that was just seemed to be what was happening. What I took from that was the value that data can have, but the fact that creative decisions should never be made on data. You take the data and you're able to use it so that when, Beyonce comes and says, hey, I may have something new for you to market or to sell or to communicate, I can say with, a fairly good understanding of who's going to want to have that information and how they're going to use it and share it or buy it, etc.
Okay. And you mentioned Beyonce.com, which is, I guess a lot of artists are talking now about owning their community, or at least pulling Facebook, Twitter, all these things to their own space. So that's something you're doing, and then also using it to then sell stuff, communicate.
Yeah, so again, I think Beyonce is a little bit of a fringe case. I wouldn't necessarily use her as a case study. I'm not sure that every artist has enough traction to spend the money on building a website and a team to support a website. I don't know if the ROI is there. But for us, Beyonce.com is essentially the perfect place to sort of gather everything that we either post online or that we want to communicate or that we want to sell, even, like our merch store, which is incredibly successful, and put it in one place and be able to communicate it effectively. And it's also designed, thanks to our in-house creative team, in a really compelling way so that it really feels like it's aesthetically on brand with who she is as an artist. It is not a typical artist site, that has the same categories on every artist site, music, tours, pics, Facebook, Twitter. We don't do any of that. We keep it more online and in line with a brand, and we ensure that we have the information there that pertains to everything that she does, but also make it a really compelling place that we want fans to go to. And then again, pulling the data from there is what's really important.
I was going to ask what kind of a CEO she's in that, because the creative vision you were saying is kind of based on what she's doing.
Yeah.
Is she the kind to come in and say, actually, no, different color pink?
Yes.
And everyone just wear, like, she is quite hands-on in, not maybe that kind of annoying, but...
No, not annoying at all. She's brilliant. I mean, she's a creative genius. She knows who she is, and she has definitive opinions about all things related to creative. I don't think she would necessarily have an opinion about, a particular piece of data or, but anything that you see posted to the public has gone through her approval. Every single item.
Goodness. Like, I think Google, actually, the CEOs have to sign off every single recruitment person, and they keep that. So even at the size of Google, there are people saying we're going to have an input here. I mean, I wanted to ask you about video. We were talking about, I was going to ask you about what YouTube means for Beyonce, and we ended up talking about Facebook native video instead. So it would be good to talk about how you're using video beyond the VEVO channel with official music videos, and what you're doing around Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah, sure. So for clarification, because Beyonce is signed to Columbia via Sony, all of our music videos go through our VEVO channel. Anything that's not a music video, that is another video, let's say, of her something, I don't know, backstage at a concert or a charity event that we've done, is all hosted on our Beyonce YouTube channel. And that's a place where I use to essentially let all of our video content live. That's not music video. One day I hope, we can bring that all together, but that's sort of how we have it set up for right now.
You're doing more of that. Is that, as time goes on, are you doing more of the the backstagey, personal
We
type
have
stuff?
quite a bit, and it ebbs and flows depending on what projects we have going on. But we have a lot of video content that lives there. But ultimately, a couple of months ago, I noticed that traction of Facebook native video increased exponentially from about, I would say, May or so to July. The increase in video views of native video was going through the roof. So I started to upload quite a bit more content as a native on our channel, and I saw unbelievably positive results. So much so that I asked the Facebook team if we could figure out a way to make the view count public, because it's so important for a fan. A fan is going to be much more inclined to watch a video that had 17 million previous views as opposed to 270.
If that's the kind of numbers you're doing, I don't give away any secrets, but you are doing tens of millions of views on Facebook videos.
Oh, yeah. And now that's all public. So going forward, I think as of last month, Facebook made video view counts public so that everyone can see that. So we do use Facebook natives all the time. We've had great success with it. But again, we don't flood the channel with stuff that may not be important to a fan. It's about, uploading the right content, compelling content, things that people want to see, things that are relative and authentic to the Beyonce brand, and then ensuring that the channel is supported. I still use YouTube as a secondary support channel because YouTube is a place for video to live. And if someone wants to go and search for something that they saw as a Facebook native, it's virtually impossible to find it.
And it's quite interesting because Facebook, a lot of music industry marketers I got a bit annoyed at Facebook's declining organic reach, but you guys don't pay. You're doing well from it without paying Facebook. Is that something you think
is? For anything.
Is that because it's Beyonce? Is that because
it is?
It's not quite scalable to everyone, but
it's just that. I mean, I think it's the nature of the fan base. It's the nature of that she has she's hovering somewhere around 70 million Facebook fans. It's a huge number, and the fans are they really want content all the time.
Okay.
So.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left. So the last thing I was going to ask you, we were talking about apps earlier on, and mobile apps. And there's been a lot of cycles of hype in the music industry about music and apps and artists. So there was Bjork and Lady Gaga. And then, but that's not something you've been doing. Just talk about how you see that space of, is there a reason to have an app for Beyonce on your phone, or are you focusing on the other platforms?
Right now we don't have an app that's being supported. There are a number of fans that have created their own apps, but I haven't seen one that's actually all that compelling. I think the problem with an app is very similar to what I was mentioning before about newer social channels. If an artist is going to develop an app, there has to be compelling content that they continue to feed day in and day out on a regular basis, and it's very hard to do. For most artists, they don't have content available every single day, because if they're finished with a tour or they don't have an album in the works, there's nothing there. So an app ends up becoming just this, place for Twitter feeds to be pulled in, and that gets quite boring. I think the other problem also for a fan, if I'm, 15 years old and I have, 5 artists that I love, and am I going to download those 5 apps and switch between each app as I want to see what's going on? No, I'm going to still be on Instagram and Snapchat and perhaps look at Facebook, and I'm going to consume all my content because my friends are sending it to me there anyway. So I don't really know at this point if there's a place for an artist-focused app in the app ecosystem. But I think if it does get to that point, it's got to be something that just clearly hasn't been done before and is, compelling in multiple ways.
That's it. Well, look, we're basically out of time. So thank you very much for talking to us. And I'll gather we're on stage later on in the main stage another day this week.
We're doing, I'm participating in the Youth Summit that I don't think anyone here is invited to. All young people from around Ireland, and the music stage, I believe.
Yes.
Tomorrow,
Okay.
yes.
Well, Graham, look, thank you for listening.
Thank you.
And,